Okay, I'm preparing my computer, my main gaming computer, to be redone. Of course, I gotta take the best shell out of the world out of it, office, and shut it down. It's AMD quad core 3.2 gig. It's the version with the 4 megabytes of L2 cache. I'm going to be converting it to pretty much the same processor, but it's going to be having 6 megabytes L2 cache. Okay, I'm just showing you to walk around the computer case. It's a pretty nice computer case with good cooling, good airflow. It's like a $40 case. Really good buy. Actually, both these processors, the one I have in here and the one I'm going to be putting in here, are 2.8 gigs overclocked to 3.2. I've already, as you'll see, I switch everything over, but in the processor that I just switched over into here with the motherboard, I just did a quick overclock at 3.2. I didn't have to bump the voltage or anything. So later on, I'm going to see how far I can go. I don't want to bump the voltage because that costs you quite a bit of power efficiency. So I'm just taking off the case cover. It's pretty simple. There's a plug that plugs in for the fan. You gotta unplug. Okay, that's my blower. That's my video card. And that's the processor that I was telling you about. And that's my 600 watt power supply. And the first thing I'm going to do is remove all the power cables. And I'm also going to be removing all the data cables like the IDE, what have you, SATA. That's my 4 gigs of DDR800 memory. That's a board that has DDR2 and DDR3 memory, but I could never get the DDR3 to work. You can only run one or the other. They're dual channel for both, but that's the main reason why I'm getting rid of this board. I got another board up to 16 gigs of DDR3. Okay, here I'm just removing the power cord to my ATI 6870 video card, and showing you gotta take out the screws yet. That's a pretty good card. It's about 2 to 4 times faster depending on what you're doing than my old 4850. It's real quiet too. I can max out about every game. Well, I have maxed out every game. 4x AA. It's not quite powerful enough to run multi-monitor or 3D and max out. So I'm kind of wishing I bought an Crossfire board. But the board I got was a 16x PCI 2 and then a 4x PCI 2. I should have got a double 16x because if I run 3D or go multi-monitor, I'm gonna have to get a new video card instead of just doubling up on the one I have. So here I'm just removing all the power cords. You see that power supply has a lot of long cords. That's the thing about power supplies. You're never happy. Either they don't have enough cords or too short, or they got too many and they're too long. So it's almost impossible to be happy with a power supply. So. Okay, this is my no tool. This case has no tool installation of drives, and it's real easy to use. I'm just removing my PC blower right here. Don't really need it, but I just put it in there for a little extra cooling power. Okay, so I'm just preparing to remove the motherboard, disconnecting all the headers for the USB pain to put in because you really gotta be fine with your fingers. Removing the SATA cord for my hard drive. Taking the IDE cords for my old CD drives. I bought a new DVD burners just so I didn't have to use IDE cords because they take up a lot of space and they're just annoying. Okay, I removed all the screws and I'm just gonna yank the motherboard right out because I'm gonna be transplanting this right into my other PC, my secondary PC. So there goes my motherboard, processor, RAM, and I'm going to be bringing in my new board, new processor, new RAM. Okay, popping out my old IDE CD burner, taking out the toolless drive lock, sliding it out, removing it. This case is painted black. It looks cool, but it does make things hard to see, so you gotta use pretty good lighting. That's why I'm using an LED headlight. Put in my new SATA drive here. And I did have 2 drives in this case, and I gotta find my old drive cover, because now I got an empty drive in here. I might just end up buying a DVD burner, or not a burner, but a Blu-ray drive to fill in the other one. I got a gaping hole right now. So here you can see all you do is line up the holes just like if you're using regular screws, but instead of using screws in this case, you just pop in your little tool here. Once you get it figured out, click it in and it's locked in nice and good. Now you see I pushed all the power cables out of my way. Here I'm just seeing if the drive's in there nice and tight, not going to pop out or loose. Sliding in my new 1 terabyte hard drive, upgrading from a 250 gig. Definitely run out of space real fast when you play games. So I was running with 20, 30 gigs free all the time. Now with a 1 terabyte, I got plenty of space for games and videos and music. Don't have to worry about that. Get this dang thing figured out right here. As you see, I have my old 250 gig drive, and this is so I could transfer the files over, but once I want to boot it, if for some reason it would not recognize both the drives at the same time. For sometimes weird stuff like that happens, so I ended up just transferring it to the other computer and then using an external hard drive to copy my important files later. Okay, here I installed my new board. It's a nice board. Looks pretty. Here's my new processor. You gotta make sure you line up the gold triangle on the processor with the triangle on the board, and just gently lay the processor in and gently feel and make sure it fell in. Don't push it in, you'll bend the pins if you did it wrong. And then you just bring in the locking arm to lock it down and gently feel to see if it feels tight. It should feel nice and tight. And next I'm going to put in the RAM because I got a big cooler going in here. I want to make sure I don't put the cooler in and then not have any room for my RAM. So I'm opening the tabs, getting them prepared. Okay, here's one 4 gig stick, DDR1600. Getting ready to drop in. Make sure you don't put it in upside down, backwards, whatever. It's pretty easy to do. All you gotta do is line up the there's a little slot that tells you if you got it the right way. Go ahead and push them down till both tabs lock in, and gently confirm that gently but firmly confirm that they're in all the way. That's a slot you just saw. Make sure it lines up with the connector. Make sure it's in nice and good. You don't want to put it in backwards and then try to smash it in. It's nice and good. Now I'm gonna be putting my silver thermal grease on the processor. You want a nice thin layer. I put a little bit too much on, and I had to wipe some of it off after I spread it out. You want it nice and thin. You don't want to put the cooler on and then press it down and have it smash out everywhere. I just use my finger. It's the easiest thing to do. You can control where you want it and not be frustrated or anything like that. I've used my finger for this, several dozen times and never had any problems. That's the excess, and there's even more excess I end up wiping down. Okay, I just put the cooler on, and now I'm putting the tabs on. Once you put the brackets onto the tabs, here I'm just showing you that there's barely any space for my RAM. That's why I put the RAM in first, because you can move the cooler side to side a hair to compensate. Okay, once you put the cooler on, well, obviously you want to plug in the fan cord. Motherboards always have the computer fan labeled CPU fan, so you can't miss it. Just put it down in a little bit, not really that tricky. Make sure your cords are away from your fans. Use zip ties where necessary. Okay. Getting ready to put in my video card. I guess you couldn't see really good when I locked in the cooler. No big deal. It's easy to do. Okay, putting in the video card. It's in. Coming in. Slide it down. PCI 2 slot. One of the easiest things you could ever do. Make sure it's in there nice and firm. Go ahead and screw it in. Make sure you try to line it up straight, not have it angled. Okay, next I'm going to be hooking up my data cables, my 2 SATA cables. Easy to do. Go ahead and I'm going to be plugging my my headers, my USB header, my audio header, and then all the power switches and all that crap. You probably should do that first, because it's as you see, it's real tight in there. It's easier to do that because that's one of the hardest things to do. Do that while everything's out of the way. It can be pretty frustrating. They're all plugged in. Everything's. You should use your manual if you don't know what you're doing, but everything's labeled on the board almost all the time, so it's pretty easy to figure out. For most things, polarity doesn't matter. The only thing in polarity usually matters is for the LED lights. Here I'm just saying, getting ready to plug in all the power wires, and that's just what I did. Looks like a lot of wires, looks like it's confusing, but it's really just one thing at a time. You can't really mess it up.